This here is the model year 24 updated Polestar 2. It scores a new look. It also gets more driving range as well. And in the entry-level versions, they've gone from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive. So, there's a lot to talk about. Let's get to it. G'day, I'm Matt. This channel is called The Right Car, and the Polestar 2 could be the right car for you now if it wasn't before, because, well, there've been some important improvements, and I'm going to tell you all about in this test. And the driving dynamics, well, they've changed a lot. So if that's what interests you, you can skip ahead. If not, stick with me. There's a lot to get through. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It helps a lot. The Polestar 2 range has a bunch of different options available, and on screen you will see the pricing for each variant as I mention it, and also the WLTP driving range for that variant. So hopefully that makes it simple for you to decide which one of these might be right for you. Okay, so the entry-level model has gone up a few grand in cost, but it does have more driving range as a result of a bit of a shift in the mentality behind the Polestar 2, including the fact that it's not front-wheel drive anymore. The new base model single motor version is rear-wheel drive. And then if you step up from there, you can get a long-range version of that rear-wheel drive model, which for about 4 grand more adds about 120 Ks of extra driving range, at least on paper. So that might make a lot of sense for you if you are someone who is going to use their car as, well, Australia dictates that you must do long distance driving. And then there's the all-wheel drive models. The entry-level all-wheel drive version still has a front motor and a rear motor. It's got a fair bit less driving range than the long-range version that sits below it on the pricing tree, but it does have all-wheel drive, so it's got more power, an extra motor. So yeah, there's a fair bit going for that one. And then at the top of the range is the performance pack version, this one here, which, well, it's got 350 kilowatts of power. So it's basically very, very, very fast. And if that's what you need, well, that seems like a pretty good price for a car like this. Now, all models come as standard with a bunch of really good technology, including LED lighting, alloy wheels, and on the inside you get the big media screen with Google technology. So it's got Hey Google connectivity. You can just say Hey Google and ask it whatever you want. It's also got Apple CarPlay and YouTube as well, which is kind of neat. Hey, speaking of YouTube, if you haven't subscribed already, please do. It helps a lot. All right, let's consider the competitors to this car. There are a couple of obvious alternatives to the Polestar 2 when it comes to competitors. And in terms of the most obvious one, it's the Tesla Model 3. Now that car is very, very good in a lot of different ways. It also offers plenty of value for money. So it could be a really good choice for you if you are conscious of your budget, because, well, that's why there's so many of them around, because so many people are buying them because they make so much sense. They're also pretty readily available too, so wait times might not be that big of a deal for you. Other alternatives include the Hyundai Ioniq 6. Hit the link at the top of your screen then you'll be able to check out my review of that strange looking contraption, but it is a very, very impressive EV, and well, it's got some pretty long range claims as well. So if you need a really long range EV, it could be a good choice for you. And finally, what about the Kia EV6? You can hit the link up there and check out my review of that car. I drove the GT model, which is 100 grand, but bloody hell, it's good. There are some more affordable versions of that car, although they are a little bit expensive compared to what you are paying for something like this, which is from a different kind of brand, but it's also a bit bigger. So if you are after something that's a bit more practical, it could be a really good option for you. Hey, let me know in the comments if there's any alternatives that you would recommend that people look at that I haven't listed here. It's not that big, this car. It's just over 4.6 meters long. And the thing I like about the design of it is that it's unashamedly not anything in particular. Like, it's kind of a sedan, it's kind of an SUV, but it's really just a mix of different genres, and I really like it. But tell me what you reckon in the comments. Are you a fan of the look? Because, yeah, I know it is divisive. One thing that I am surprised by is that they still haven't done a model that has, well, those black plastic sections coloured in, for want of a better term. I reckon it could look like a bit classier if it did have some colour coding around those plastic sections. But anyway, let's check out the boot. There's a little bit to talk about here, people. One interesting thing about the boot, before we get into it, is that the button is down there on the bumper, which is a little bit weird. Anyway, boot space, not too bad. You'll see the figure on your screen. The thing that is interesting about this boot is that there's a secret compartment. So just like the frunk, there's a section underneath here where you can store an extra 40 litres of capacity of stuff. So that might mean something like some backpacks, or maybe some secret stuff that you don't want to show the kids that you're getting out of the back of the car at Christmas time or something like that. But it is a pretty handy space. It's also got this little divider, so if you do have some things that you don't want moving around in the back, that's pretty handy. There's a little net on the side as well, and an elasticated strap on that side. So that might be handy for something like a bottle of milk, so if you don't want it to fly around in the back of the car. Look, it is pretty practical, and I like the fact that it's a liftback and not a sedan. It just makes it just a little bit more usable in terms of the space. There haven't been enormous changes on the inside of the Model Year 24 Polestar, but I don't think that's a big deal because there are still some really nice elements to the cabin here. Now, look, this one is not the standard spec, so this one's got the Napa leather interior option, which costs a lot of money, but they are lovely seats. Apparently the uptake for the leather pack is actually quite high, and I can understand why, because these look and feel really nice. The interior itself has that Scandinavian vibe to it. It's quite minimalist in the way that it's presented, and I actually think that the materials used here are really good too. Some minimalism is annoying though. So the media control system is high-tech and it does have a lot of features, but it is a bit difficult at times to jump between menus. For instance, look, I'm on this screen here and I don't know how to get back to the fan controls, for instance. So where would I go? I wouldn't go into the car menu, would I? No. Would I go into the camera? No, that wouldn't make sense. So it is a bit strange that there isn't as usable a interface as there could be. Like a lot of other screens that have a lot going on have like a hard panel at the bottom where the climate control system will stay in place, but this car doesn't have that. So that might take a little bit of getting used to. However, you can just say something like, "Hey Google, set the temperature to 21 degrees. And it'll do that for you. So
changing the temperature to 21 degrees.
So there you go. But it just is a little bit annoying that it isn't a constant on this screen. Hey Google, turn off the air conditioning.
Got it. Turning off the AC.
You might need to tell it to turn the fan.
Hey Google, turn off the fan.
Sure. Turning off fan.
There you go. So that is a little bit frustrating, but you do get used to the other menus on the screen, and you probably will get used to asking it to change things for you using your voice instead of using fingers. It's probably actually a little bit less distracting if you were to talk to it rather than try and hunt through screens to get where you need to go. Now, speaking of screens, there's another one in front of the driver, fully digital as well. The controls for it are on the steering wheel. They are a little bit confusing and you do get used to them, but they're just not as intuitive as some other cars which have, well, actual text on the steering wheel to tell you what you are controlling. So otherwise, I think it does have a pretty nice vibe to the cabin, although storage could be better. You've got one cup holder here and there's another one in here, but the thing is, if you're driving and you've got big arms, or maybe you just like to sit back like this, you can't use that second cup holder. So that's a little bit annoying. And like some other EVs have a big storage section underneath here, there's some little sleeves on either side of the tunnel, but there's no big sort of tray underneath there. You do have a wireless phone charger up here and some USB ports for the screen as well. But yeah, the storage could be better. There's bottle holders in the doors, but yeah, look, it's not perfect, but it still feels pretty nice. Let's check out the back seat. Second row space in the Polestar 2 is not too bad. It's not exceptional though. My toe room is quite limited. I do have pretty big feet, size 12, so that is a bit of an issue for me, but it might not be for you. Seat space, yeah, look, I've got enough knee room in front of my legs, and headroom is okay, but if you're anything taller than 6 foot, you might find that it is a bit cramped in the back. So just keep that in mind. If you have tall backseat passengers, they might not be the most comfortable in the back of this car, but there are bigger Polestar models coming soon, so maybe one of those will be the right car for you. All right, Amenities, pretty good. You've got map pockets on the seat backs. You've also got seat heating in this spec, which is good to see. Directional air vents, bottle holders in the doors, and a little flip down here with cup holders, which is nice to see. So it's not too bad. Again, not exceptional, but still pretty good. Oh, speaking of having rear occupants, ISOFIX points in the window seats and 3 top tethers as well. So look, it could make a really good family car if you've got younger children, but I wouldn't say it's going to suit someone who's got big teens. Before we talk power and torque, let's talk about under bonnet storage. There is a frunk in every single version of this car, which is good to see. Means you can put your cables in there or just use it as an extra storage space if you want to. Now, power and torque is an important consideration for this car because all models have seen improvements in this updated version. You're talking 200 kilowatts for the entry-level model and a 0 to 100 time of 6.4 seconds for that new rear-wheel drive single motor version. Now, if you buy the long-range version, you get more power and you also get a quicker 0 to 100 time, 6.2 seconds, which is good to see. And then if you want the real performance models, you go for the higher spec all-wheel drive version. Because it's got 2 motors, it's not twice as fast, but it is quicker. You'll see the 0 to 100 time on your screen now, and it does have heaps of power and torque. 310 kilowatts is heaps. And then if you buy this one, the performance version, it's 350 kilowatts of power, which seems ridiculous, and it is a little bit crazy in terms of the way that it drives and the acceleration performance on offer. Look, EVs typically are pretty quick, but this is really quick. As I've already alluded to, the driving range figures are pretty great here. All versions come with more than 500 k's of EV driving range based on WLTP testing. The standard range model has a 69 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is now sourced from LG Chem. It's a lithium ion battery pack using nickel manganese cobalt construction. And it has pretty impressive driving range as standard, 532 k's WLTP. The extended range model has an 82 kilowatt hour battery pack from CATL, and on screen you'll see the single motor and dual motor driving range figures, impressive to say the least. Both batteries can be charged at up to 11 kilowatts on AC power, but just remember you'll need 3-phase power at home to get that. The standard range version can be DC fast charged at up to 135 kilowatts, which is faster than before, and 205 kilowatts DC charging capability is available for the 82 kilowatt hour battery pack. This new rear-wheel drive entry-level single motor version, it's excellent. It makes a big difference to the driving dynamics of the car. For it to not be front-wheel drive, to not have to struggle to put the power down through the front axle while also steering through the front axle, obviously, it just makes for a more enjoyable and dynamic and fun-feeling drive experience. There's also been some really big benefits to the ride comfort. Now, Polestar says there hasn't actually been big changes to the suspension tune or anything like that. It's more that you are feeling the difference between it being, well, a bit more balanced in terms of less weight at the nose of the car. So it just has a nicer feel to it on the road. It's still a little bit busy in terms of the suspension. Sort of, you feel a lot of the little bumps and lumps in the surface, but hey, I reckon it does make a massive difference in terms of the drive experience. To me, it just feels like the steering in this new rear-wheel drive entry-level model is more enjoyable. There's also different driving modes you can choose from in terms of the steering feel. You can have it being a little bit more heavy-weighted, or you can have it really light, and I like the light steering mode. I think it just adds a little bit more involvement for the driver. It's not like, you know, trying to push you around quite as much. It's not quite as heavy in corners. One other thing that's a bit different between the front-wheel drive existing models and the rear drive version is that it does have a different one-pedal driving mode responsiveness. So one-pedal driving, if you're not aware, it means that you don't have to touch the brake pedal. You can just take your foot off the accelerator and the car will come to a stop. I'll show you right now. Take my foot off and yep, complete stop. So that took a little while. In the front-wheel drive existing version, it did it faster. It was more aggressive in the way that it behaved in one-pedal driving mode, in the most aggressive mode. There are a few different modes that you can choose from. So it isn't necessarily as assertive, but it actually makes it just a little bit more natural to drive, if you ask me. And also, because it's rear wheel drive, it kind of feels like instead of pulling out of a corner, you are pushed out of a corner. And that is a really nice feeling. In my mind, it just feels like a more natural drive experience. And hey, that's exactly what Polestar has said that customers have asked for. They wanted something that felt a bit more Polestar, because remember, Polestar was a performance brand before it became its own EV brand. So enthusiasts wanted rear-wheel drive, and that's what they got. But obviously there's also the all-wheel drive versions, which have a motor at the front and at the back, and they feel really, really quick. So if that's what you're after, if you're after that explosive acceleration, then you have to buy the high-spec version. And let me tell you, in the last Polestar 2 high-spec model with those Öhlins adjustable dampers, they were pretty firm and pretty uncomfortable at times. In fact, in some situations, I would consider them punishing in terms of the ride comfort. But now it's a big difference. They've been tuned back a little bit to be a little bit more comfort focused, and the difference is noticeable. So if that's what you're after, something that's a bit more performance focused and still has that edgy feel to it, well, the top spec model is going to be a really good choice for you. Another criticism is that it is a little bit hard to see out of the back of this car because of the way the roofline is sculpted. All in all, this change has been a big one. In fact, it feels more like an all-new model to drive than it does a big facelift. So if you've maybe driven the front-wheel drive model before and gone, nah, it's not really for me, go back and test one now, because it might be the right car for you. Rightio, there's a few different numbers you need to know when it comes to efficiency. I'll go through each of the different versions one by one to help you digest it. And I'm going to put graphics on the screen to make it easier for everyone, because I can't remember all these numbers. So the entry-level version, the single motor standard range, you'll see the figure on your screen now. That is very efficient. It's improved over the last model as well, so that's nice to see. Now, I've been driving the single motor long range version most of the day today. Now, you'll see the figure that's the official WLTP claim on your screen now, and you'll see now what I saw over a mix of different driving scenarios, including some pretty enthusiastic driving on this launch test out here around Canberra. And if you choose the all-wheel drive model, the standard version, not the performance one, you'll see the figure on your screen now. Yes, adding an extra motor to the mix does mean that you add extra weight, and you also, well, you add more performance, so a little bit less efficiency is the price to pay there. But it's still pretty efficient for a dual motor EV at this kind of money. In fact, it is even more efficient than something like a Volvo XC40 Recharge all-wheel drive model. So yeah, not too bad at all. The Polestar 2 managed the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating in 2021, but there has been a bit of a change of tact from the brand here when it comes to standard safety tech, because previously you had to pay extra to get blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, but that's now standard. The prices have gone up a little bit to counter that, but it is nice to see that it's standard. And it also includes rear cross traffic alert braking and rear autonomous emergency braking too. Annoyingly though, you still have to pay extra if you want adaptive cruise control. It's part of a package, and to me, that just seems a bit silly because, well, it should be standard. Lots of other cars, well less than this car costs, have adaptive cruise control as standard. But if you are looking for the tech, it does have a fair amount going on, and it's pretty usable tech as well, although the speed sign recognition system is a little bit annoying. And when it comes to airbags, you've got dual front center, front side, and also curtain airbag coverage. Polestar offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, plus there's an 8-year 160,000 warranty for the battery pack, which states that you should have 70% of usable charge still remaining after 8 years, which is nice to see. And also you should know that if a module in the battery pack did fail during your time with the car, then they can replace just a module. You don't have to replace the whole battery, which is a nice ownership perk if you ask me. Speaking of perks, there's 5 years of free servicing and 5 years of roadside assist included with this car. So it does make sense from an ownership perspective. The Polestar 2 update is a big improvement on the existing model. Not that the old one wasn't good, this one just, well, refines things a little bit. It makes it a bit more enjoyable and also adds extra driving range, which could be a decision maker for you. Tell me what you think. Would you choose a Polestar 2 or one of the rivals I've mentioned in this review? I'd love to hear from you, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It helps a lot. See ya.